Well, thank you for joining me today on at Rural Wealth MD Financial Perspectives. I have Betsy Neddermeyer, owner and PA of True Body Medical Spa. So I'm super excited that you're here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
If you can share a little bit about like your practice and kind of how it came to be, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I'm Betsy Neddermeyer. I own True Body Medical Spa. Recently rebranded it to True Body Medical Aesthetics and Wellness.
Huh?
Um, but honestly wasn't super satisfied with how healthcare was going for me personally. I've been in healthcare now for 10 years. For the first 8.5, 9 years, I was in a very traditional setting. So rural primary care, did a little bit of urgent care, did a little bit of emergency medicine, just kind of trying to figure out like what I really wanted to do. I just really like helping people. And I wasn't really fulfilled. And looking back on it, I can say that, but in that moment, I didn't really think that. I was just like
Sure.
trying to find something better.
Yeah.
And so kind of what happened was, you're when you work for a large institution, they're more concerned about volume than they are quality of care and outcomes. And so I kind of just started this little side hustle, if you will. And for a couple of years, just on the side, I was really getting into functional medicine and hormone optimization and weight loss care and nutrition and lifestyle and all these like things you don't learn in medical school. And at least I didn't. And so I started doing that more on the side, and I realized, wow, there's a really big demand for this. Like people like this kind of care, and they like being able to sit down with me for a long time and really like get to the root cause of things rather than just like putting band-aids on stuff. And so it was in 2025 that I stepped away from my job full time and I went to True Body full time. Um, and it's been great ever since. But that's kind of how it originally started. So it would have been late 2022, early 2023 when True Body became a thing on the
Okay.
side.
Okay. On the side. Okay.
Yep,
And then
yep,
full blown 2025.
yep. And that's why I rebranded it because, originally, I was doing like 1 day a week, maybe 2 days a week, and but every other day of the week we were doing more aesthetics,
Mm.
things like that. So when I came on full time, I really like that was kind of the whole reason why it became a business for me. Like I didn't set up to be a business owner. I just kind of wanted to provide this care, and then along came this entrepreneurship, right? Um, but I wanted it and still want the main focus to be like more wellness driven with like an aesthetic department. Because I think they do blend well together and people are looking for that both of those things at once, and that builds all that confidence. And so I think there's a lot of overlap, but wellness is kind of my goal.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love wellness.
Yep.
But when you were talking, I was thinking too, is that it's like you found this like perfect niche of blending the aesthetics with the
Yeah,
wellness.
I think so. I'm glad you think so. Yeah, I think some people are like, I don't get how it like works together, but I mean, when you're seeing people who, sometimes have like 60 plus pounds to lose, they're a whole different person at the end of that journey. And they're way more confident. They usually want, to look good. They want their hair not to be falling out. Like they want this whole aesthetic component, and it just kind of completes the package. And that's like one of the biggest things that I think makes like it's so rewarding is because you can see them walk in with a certain demeanor and then months later walk out as like this totally different person. Like the confidence in like their personal and professional lives, and like it just radiates off of them. And I think that's well captured with doing both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You get that like I'm gonna call it goosebump moment, but like where like not to be egotistical or prideful, but you're like I helped with that.
Mhm.
Like I helped
Yeah.
them with this new like outcome on life, like
Mhm.
outcome on their health and everything.
Mhm.
I
From
love
the
that.
inside out. They're like healthy from the inside out. Like their skin's healthy, their internal stuff is healthy, like everything, and they know it, and they'll want to like keep doing that cuz they feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super rewarding. I
Mhm.
love that. So you talked a little bit about like having always worked kind of in a rural healthcare setting.
Mhm.
What's been the most like unique experience or being part of that rural environment in healthcare?
Rural healthcare is much different because you don't have a specialist down the street. You don't have a specialist in your same building. You are all the people. You're the counselor, you're the primary care provider, you're wearing all of these hats, and you're trying to kind of fulfill these specialist roles for patients. And so you can't just like call up and say like, can you see this patient this afternoon? They've got XYZ thing going on. You have to be like, well, I'm working this up, and I'm working this up in a place that I might not have all the, opportunities for the same types of labs to draw or imaging to get or whatever the case may be. And so sometimes you're like scabbing things together to complete this care for people. Um, but it's also so rewarding in that sense because you're not just like passing them off and like hopefully they do well. You're getting to see like the problem and then the workup and then the resolution sometimes. And that's on like your family members, that's on your neighbors, that's on your community members, like those are your friends. Like when you live in a rural space, like you're seeing people that you'll see in the grocery store the next day or their family. And so it's very rewarding in the sense that like you get to start and finish with most everyone, but also you get to create such a deep relationship with everybody. And that's like kind of unheard of, when people move here and they've worked in like a large institution in a large city or urban area. Like that's I think one of the funnest parts of like coming to a rural location, because you're getting they're they're actually seeing like the start and the finish, and they're just so like almost proud of that. And I thankfully like started in a rural area and I remain here, and so I've always gotten that. I've always like been so grateful that I was able to come back to Cody, Wyoming, where I was born and raised, and like see and treat the people I grew up with, my teachers who like taught me in school. Like, that's just so cool.
Yes.
Really cool.
Yes, because well, it's like the roles have reversed where like they see you as the professional now versus like,
Yeah. Like
oh,
the
little
kid.
Betsy from
Yep.
middle school.
The track girl. Yeah, like exactly.
Yeah, that's neat, but refreshing too, because I think sometimes small towns can have that how they perceived you then could carry into your
Absolutely.
adulthood. So
Absolutely. Like, and I think that's also been refreshing for most of the community here. Like I was always a good kid. Honestly, like I really was. I worked hard, did athletics for my entire life, and so did my brothers. But like I think, I myself, even like hiring people as like a boss now, like you kind of know people from in the past. You're like, well, are they the same person and stuff? So I myself feel like you're able to like grow with your community and see the change in people and give them that benefit of the doubt, and really like now in a role as like a boss, like almost like foster um their dreams in a way. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're older than me, you've done a lot of different things, is this really what you want to do? And like, how can I help you? Like, do you want to go back to school? And just giving that opportunity to people that maybe they wouldn't have gotten it otherwise.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's always easy to probably move to a different town and start completely over. But I also think that if you grow up in a small town, like I do think people have a tendency to like see past things, which is really nice.
That is nice. I love
Yeah.
that. Speaking of roles, like your roles have kind of transitioned from working in the hospital setting to being business owner. But when you think about your role today, is it a little bit different than what you kind of expected, or?
Oh yeah. Like I was saying, like I started TrueBody because I wanted to provide a different experience of care to patients and like quality. The being the business owner came with that. The like you didn't like I didn't set out to be like I want to own my own business one day. You just kind of are like, I'm just gonna do this thing on the side and I'm just gonna help people. And then it turns into this like, oh, now I'm like admin and I have to like hire people and like growth strategies and financial goals and benefits for people and PTO and all these like things that you didn't even know existed, really. The rules, the legislation, all the taxes, like so many things. So it's really like I have two jobs now. Like I'm a full-time provider still, and
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like this full-time like boss. We've got a couple 1099s who work for us, but total is like 14 people.
Wow.
And so it's a lot. And I have
It's
a
a huge team.
manager, thankfully she helps with the majority of the things since I'm in the treatment room practically every day. Um, but it's no, I did not think I would have to do the things I'm doing now. I didn't even think, like, how do you even have the time to do the things,
Yeah.
It's a 24/7 career. If I thought I was going to have some freedom with this, that was not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, very different role than what it was before.
That's cool though. But you've growing with 14 team members,
Yeah.
so you're able to kind of delegate,
Hmm.
take off some of that admin.
A little bit.
Yes,
A
a little
little bit.
bit. Okay.
My manager is great. She was originally actually hired as one of my nurse
Okay.
injectors. So when I was still working full time doing primary care, I had two nurses, and they were everything. They did the front desk, they did the ordering, they did the actual procedures on patients, like they did lab draws, they literally did jack of all trades. They did everything. And it got to the point where I wasn't there still, and like just things just start to pile up, and you just kind of start to offload it kind of like unknowingly, like a
Mm-hmm.
little here, a little there, because
Mm-hmm.
you're like, I just can't, like, I'm not
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
And it was eventually like, okay, here's all the logins for like ordering, here's all the things for this, here's all the, and eventually she just kind of transitioned out of being a provider into being my manager. So she's an RN, which is great because she knows the clinical side of things. And she has no training in administration or business or anything like that. But she got the knack of it like
Good.
super quick and super well, and she's so good with clients, like very good at like de-escalating situations and just like walking patients through things. And it's just like the perfect scenario for me. I
Good.
couldn't have asked for like a better person for
Yeah.
that. And obviously that wasn't the intention originally, but having her has been great.
Good.
To do that now. Yeah, I mean, she's also required like, I hired, kind of like these external companies sometimes to like help as like mentors,
Yeah.
because it's like, how do you have difficult conversations with people? And like those are things I don't know how to teach her how to
Yep.
do, because I don't know how
Yep.
to do myself. So
Sure.
there's still a lot that we're learning, and we're, still super early as far as like being in business. But yeah, I thankfully do have her to help me.
Yeah. I love that. I was just thinking, like, you know, like when people come see you, they see you as provider. And so people who aren't in the medical field probably don't see what your day actually looks like.
Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
have you split between provider and admin?
I don't know if there's ever like a beautiful split here, at least not yet. I think what patients think happens is that we're providers are just in the room with patients all day. I think that's like a very like, you get to work, you go see your first patient, and you just do that all day long. Maybe you get a lunch break, I'm not sure. And then at 5 o'clock, you leave. When in reality, I mean, so much of that time is actually charting. Like every time we see a patient, we have to say what we saw and our findings and our thought process and our workup and our plan and what our follow through is going to be and when we see them next. A lot of it's like interpreting labs, like when labs come in on patients, like making sure things look okay. If they have their labs, but their appointment isn't for a couple of weeks, like does something need to be addressed prior? Or maybe they don't have a follow up or whatever the case is. So, like, really assessing like imaging, lab values, making referrals. Like, patients are constantly calling in, like, I need a referral here for a mammogram, for example, or this and this and this is going on. And maybe you do need to reach out to a specialist. And so, making referrals, making sure diagnosis codes are right. I don't have to deal with insurance. I position my practice as
Mm-hmm.
cash based for a reason, because I just one didn't have the bandwidth to deal with insurance. But still, yet like it's still a conversation that happens. Patients still want to try and build their own insurance and get reimbursement, and so providing patients with like appropriate diagnosis codes and all those things. And then outside of that, like we have to maintain continued education hours. Like every year, you have to have maintained so many hours to keep your license. And so making sure you have enough hours that you're like going to trainings, or just like you can read journals and take quizzes after the journals to make sure you actually read the information. And keeping up to date on like all the new things that are coming out, which is just like volume overload on a regular basis, and especially in functional medicine. Um, and then yeah, outside of that, like I do have to figure out payroll, and I do have to figure out like how much money is coming in, how much money is leaving. I had to figure out, what do we need to order this week, what's low in inventory, like all of those things. I have to, all my staff, although I have an amazing team and amazing staff, there are little things you have to address, and you have to like make sure clients are happy, and all those different things. And like I said, I have an amazing manager who helps with a lot of these things, but at the end of the day, it's my decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's definitely not just seeing patients. Like even if I was just in a clinic, it's not just seeing patients. So I think sometimes we assume that. Also patients, I let my patients message me 24/7 about everything, and so like the portal messages can get crazy. And so I'm making sure you're prompt on responding, and it hasn't been greater than 24 hours, and it's a lot of responsibility. It's a
There's a lot,
lot of
yes.
responsibility.
Well, a lot of different hats you're wearing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, in any of those areas, I guess, do you feel like kind of personally stretched just with all of the many hats that you wear?
Oh, absolutely. I think everything honestly feels like a stretch right now, just like in my current state. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's because we've grown so fast, so quickly. You know what I mean? Like it's so much so quickly. Um, just starting out with just like me on the side one day a week and like two other people, to just like 3 years later, like 14 people, like expanding my space, doubling my square footage. Like it's just been an absolute lot to deal with. I think my biggest thing would be maintaining the experience with that amount of growth.
Hmm.
So in the beginning, I would have, my schedule would be full for sure, but I would have like plenty of room on my schedule to like go over time with patients and like
Sure.
not like jeopardize somebody else's appointment. And like I think that experience was amazing for patients who just like needed a little extra from me,
Yeah.
and like have that connection. And like what an amazing experience from going from like seeing a provider for 15 minutes to seeing me for like an hour, and so, or sometimes longer. And so when you start growing and your volume becomes so high and you're booked out 5-6 months in advance, which is my schedule right now, I don't have a lot of time for like wiggle room. And so it's like, how do I maintain that amazing experience that built the business,
Mm-hmm.
without like jeopardizing that, And so it's tricky right now. And I would say like that's one of my biggest things. I would say secondly would be understanding how to run a business financially. Like I didn't know how to read a P&L. Like I don't, you know what I mean? It's just
Mm-hmm.
like those kinds of things are very
Yeah.
like foreign to me. Tax strategies, growth strategies. Like I said, we just expanded. And so it's like, can I afford to? Can I have all these patients coming in, but does that justify that? And like,
Right.
those are
Yep.
just like a lot of things that like sometimes I don't think anybody necessarily has like the answer for you, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like sometimes you just don't even know where to like ask it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what resources?
Mhm.
Who
Mhm.
could you seek out to help with?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
That totally makes sense.
Yep.
But not a bad problem to have either, though, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Yes. And that's what I tell patients all the time when they're like, "How are things going?" And I'm like, "They're going great." And I prayed for this. Like I prayed to be
Yep.
busy. I prayed to be like overwhelmed. Like I hoped people would come and see me. And now I'm like,
It's
whoa.
here. Yep. It's
Like,
here.
okay, maybe I should have pumped the brakes a little bit. But it's
No.
great.
Good. I know you shared, the message portal is open 24/7. Is that one thing, or is there another thing possibly that does kind of, I don't want to say carry home with you, but like that does kind of extend after hours to you that you are carrying still when
Um,
lights go off at 5?
lights definitely go off at 5. The brain doesn't stop at 5. I would say like think responsibilities in general. There's so many responsibilities. And I think the thing is like patients are trusting us providers with their health.
Mm-hmm.
They're trusting us with like the toughest moments of their life, the happiest moments of their life. Like, they're trusting us to like make the best decisions for them. They're trusting that like this concern they have, that we're going to take that extremely seriously because maybe somebody else hasn't listened to them before. Like, that's a huge responsibility. And so I take that home with me. I am constantly thinking about things. I have a notebook by my bed. I've got a notebook in the bathroom on my vanity, because I'll be in the shower and I'm like, oh, that one person, and I'll have to like step out and I'll have to write somebody's name down, or like a snippet about like what I was, thinking or whatever, just like something that I'll know is what it's about, kind of thing.
Yep.
Um, I've just got those like kind of placed all about, and like if I'm driving, I've got like my memo like thing, and I cannot turn that off. That responsibility I take extremely seriously.
That's good. I mean, that shows you're, a caring provider. And
I hope so.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just had to chuckle because I was like, I've had moments like that where I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. And I'm driving or I'm in the shower and I'm like,
I
what
am.
are we doing,
Yeah.
brain? Yes. So I'm glad it's not just me.
Yep, yep, yep. It's like an ADD thing, but I don't have ADD. So I'm like, I
Yes.
don't know what this is, but it's not turning off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or just the inopportune time of when
Mm-hmm.
random good
It's
thoughts come
always
to
when
you.
you're like relaxed,
Yes.
and you're like trying not to think about something, and you're like, yeah.
Yes. Um, oh, I had just lost it. Maybe I didn't. You had touched on like keeping up with licensing and continuing
Oh.
education. Um, there is, I mean, you guys are kind of in an ever state that's medicine that's never going to stop. So there's a large demand, but how do you kind of preserve and protect your kind of time and energy?
I learned early on in my career that I can't pour from an empty cup. And saying yes, I assumed in the beginning, like saying yes to everything meant that I would be a better provider.
Mm.
I just kind of grew up that way too. Like, yeah, yes, yes, let me,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of just like jumping at those opportunities. And I just get burnt out. I got burnt out, and I was not a great provider, probably, probably could have been more attentive to things. So I have, set boundaries of my own and learned to say no to things, which I think has been really important, because when I preserve my energy and I have my energy, I am a much better provider. I'm a much better boss, a much better friend, much better wife, much better mom. And I also think that that's what's going to help me do this for 10, 20 plus more years,
Mm-hmm.
versus if I just say yes all the time. It might make me great in the moment,
Right.
but that's about it.
Yep. Yep. I love that you found boundaries because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like
It's hard. It's a struggle all the time,
mm-hmm.
but you set them, and you'll think of them
Yep.
when the thing happens. You'll be like, but should I?
Yep.
And usually like a couple times you'll slip up and you'll say yes, and then you'll be like, and this is why I say no.
Yes.
And you'll remind yourself. But yeah, I think it's a daily thing for me.
Yes.
I've got to remember the boundary.
I get it. I get it. But you went into this field to help people. And so I hear how that can want to come out then understanding like needing to preserve your own energy and time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your practice has evolved just from starting in a hospital in a rural setting to owning your own business. Medicine is always evolving. Do you continue seeing like your practice and kind of what you're doing education wise still evolving as well?
Oh, 100%. Honestly, I think the future of medicine is definitely preventative rather than like reactive,
Mm-hmm.
which is what the majority of traditional care is. I think that if you don't think that, like, you're gonna get left in the dust. And so I I'm gonna be completely honest, like I just received another advanced certification just
Good
like
job.
last week.
Yay.
Like, I think you need to be doing those things. It's continuously changing, for the better, right? Always. There's
Mm-hmm.
always like something better, something newer. So the minute you feel like you've got it dialed, like, forget it. Like, it's gonna be changed. So and preventative medicine is more root cause. So you're not, I mean, I guess when I started medicine, I kind of thought like a prescription pad was going to like cure everybody. Like, that was how
Sure.
you won in life. That's how you made everybody better. You prescribed something. Versus now, my philosophy is like, why did this happen actually? Like, let's look at your hormones and your metabolic pathways and your genetics and your, do we need to lose weight? Do we need to add nutrition? How are you sleeping? Like, there's so many things um, that you look at, and then you're trying to get to the root cause of that one problem. But then you're also like, if we set up this foundation now, it's going to prevent XYZ from happening later. So I do think that that's like how medicine should be. And I do think patients are starting to see that too.
Yeah, yeah, so true. Evolution from even on the patient side and their
Mm-hmm.
mindset,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice. So, if any physicians or providers end up watching this, what and they might feel overwhelmed in certain areas of their practice, regardless if they're in a clinic setting or
Mm-hmm.
an entrepreneur like yourself, what message of hope would you give to them?
That there's always an opportunity and you should never feel stuck. I think from experience, I know a lot of clinicians who feel very stuck in their role, whether they're an MD or a nurse practitioner PA. And I would say like there's always an opportunity. If you see a problem or you have a value to practice in a different way, there's an opportunity for that. Like whether it's concierge medicine, direct primary care, functional medicine, just hormones, like men's health, whatever you'd want. Like if you see that problem and you think I know I could be doing a better job and giving a better experience, there's always an opportunity for that. I think patients are always going to respect that decision, and so you should never feel like stuck wherever you are.
So don't limit yourself.
Yeah,
I love that.
definitely.
I love that. You talked a little bit on being the entrepreneur, having kind of being thrown into that with wanting to help people. Um, but on the financial side, what's probably not talked about a lot?
Money.
Money in general.
In general, I mean, if you think about it, like we go to school and I mean, we rack up a substantial amount of debt going to school, whether you're a physician assistant, nurse practitioner, or an MD of whatever kind, no matter what. And that entire time you are spending just learning about medicine or residencies or whatever the case is, very, very niche medicine, very broad medicine, whatever it is, you're really like in this immense amount of educational overload. And that's really all you can focus on. Like those are very rigorous programs. Like you don't have time for a job on the side. You barely have time for a family. You're just there to learn. And then at the end of the day, like you come out, you know something, but you have all this debt. And then you go to work and you think like, oh, I'm going to have financial freedom because I'm a MD and I'm going to make all this money. And you don't. But I think like one of the biggest things is like we don't talk about money because we're like, well, that's a lot. Like I'm kind of making more money than some people, so I don't want to complain about how much money I'm making. But it's really like not a lot of money when you look at like how much debt I have in student loans or like that kind of thing. But then also like all you learned was just medicine, so I don't know how to run a business, so I don't know that side of money either. Retirement, like that's not really something that's talked about unless you live in a bit like work in a big corporation. Sometimes they'll have like an advisor for like whatever retirement source they use, like come and like speak to everybody at the clinic about like these are the different plans. But like they don't talk about retirement or like growth strategies or like savings or ownership or like any of that. And so you really come out of school or like become an adult and all you know really well is just medicine. You don't technically even know how to treat people well, like patient care. That's not necessarily something you learn. You just have medicine in your back pocket. So you feel a little bit trapped because you're like, well, I know this one thing and I spent half my life getting to this one thing. And if I go back to school, I'm gonna have even more debt. So like the suicide rate is like super high in like medical
Wow.
students because they're like, crap, I'm in this 8 years now. This is actually not what I want to do, and I'm so overwhelmed with this debt. So I think there's so much. You feel so trapped.
Mm.
So I think money in general is not talked about, whether you're making a lot or a little, or owning a business, or going out on your own, or trying to just like figure out what you want to retire with or assets you want to build. None of that's talked about.
And that would be helpful if it was talked
Oh,
about more openly.
100%.
Yeah.
If we had anyone, even if that was like part of the curriculum when you went to school, like I think like the biggest thing, you come out of school and you're like, you get that first paycheck and you're just like super poor for like all of school,
Yes.
and you're like, I'm gonna go buy a truck, I'm gonna go buy a vehicle. Like you just like want to go spend this money because you're like, that's
Yes.
a lot of money. But it's like, but it's not a lot of money. Like,
Yeah.
look how much debt you have. You have like over $500,000 in debt. Like,
Yep.
that's not okay. So, yeah, I think that that would be like a huge piece that would make people feel more confident in their
Yes.
decisions, and also to not feel as stuck. Like I was talking about those opportunities, like you just kind of feel like, well, this is it. I need this paycheck to pay for this lifestyle or this debt I've
Hmm.
accrued, and this is it.
That's the only option. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I love that. So, outside of hope, yeah, don't limit yourself. There's always options.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Any other bits of wisdom you want to share before we wrap up?
Bits of wisdom I want to share. Something that I want to share is like medicine can still be very authentic. And I think some of us have lost like our sense of that. And so I would say, as like a healthcare provider, um, and also entrepreneur, like we all have the ability to still create a very authentic experience for patients and give them the opportunity to feel heard. And even if you don't have, like the advanced certifications, like we still know medicine,
Hmm.
and we still have the opportunity to make that experience better for every single patient. And I don't think, like, I think there's this sense of like medicine is lost, since like kind of the COVID era and things like that kind of ruined people in healthcare. So I think I would just end on like, just remember, as a healthcare provider, um, you're not stuck, and you still have that ability. If you think you're not providing that right experience or right amount of care, you don't need to have all the answers to all the different tests and like functional or hormones or whatever. Just sitting down with somebody and listening to them and letting them cry to you or explain what they're going through, and then simply just being like, I will look into this, I will find somebody to help you. Like that authenticity is so important, and that's really all your patient's looking for. They don't need to have all the answers right then, they just want somebody who cares.
Yes.
That's it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think of the like going back to like when we were kids, right? We were authentic to ourselves and didn't care. And so in the adult life, we get muddied a little bit
We do.
instead of being that. So I love that. That really resonated. So,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate you being here with me today
Thanks
and
for having
chatting.
me.
So these conversations are super important. If any of you guys want to know more of the financial complexities that providers go through, I did put a little resource guide in the link. So check that out below, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Something that I want to share is like medicine can still be very authentic. And I think some of us have lost like our sense of that. And so I would say, as like a healthcare provider, um, and also entrepreneur, like we all have the ability to still create a very authentic experience for patients and give them the opportunity to feel heard. And even if you don't have, like the advanced certifications, like we still know medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and we still have the opportunity to make that experience better for every single patient. And I don't think, like, I think there's this sense of like medicine is lost, since like kind of the COVID era and things like that kind of ruined people in healthcare. So I think I would just end on like, just remember, as a healthcare provider, um, you're not stuck, and you still have that ability. If you think you're not providing that right experience or right amount of care, you don't need to have all the answers to all the different tests and like functional or hormones or whatever. Just sitting down with somebody and listening to them and letting them cry to you or explain what they're going through, and then simply just being like, I will look into this, I will find somebody to help you. Like that authenticity is so important, and that's really all your patient's looking for. They don't need to have all the answers right then, they just want somebody who cares.
Yes.
That's it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think of the like going back to like when we were kids, right? We were authentically ourselves and didn't care. And so in the adult life, we get muddied a little bit.
We do.
Instead of being that. So I love that. That really resonated. So
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being here with me today
Thanks
and
for having
chatting.
me.
So these conversations are super important. If any of you guys want to know more of the financial complexities that providers go through, I did put a little resource guide in the link. So check that out below, and we'll talk to you guys soon.